And Mike Yvard has opted to, I think I forwarded the email out to everybody, so, I emailed Derek the Hall, the moderator. He said he would get back to me. I emailed Holly. She's on vacation till next Thursday, I believe, or Wednesday, the 11th. So Mike said he thought he had someone who might be interested, but I'm gonna wait till, gonna give the moderator a little more time. And hopefully we'll get somebody so we won't have, so we'll have a full house. Did you all read Mike's email, Mike Curry's email about, okay, about what he's trying to do?
Yep.
I applaud him. Not sure how successful, but I applaud his efforts. Ain't gonna happen if you don't try. So the first thing, and this is kind of carried over from the last meeting, we didn't really discuss any specifics. We did a lot of discussion, questions, answers, interesting points made up, and views and stuff. So I worded as what the advisory role in town policies could be or is. The one specific thing is that the advisory committee, finance committee, oversees the town's reserve fund. If they want to transfer any money out of that, it has to come through us. The selectmen not involved. It's our responsibility by statute. So a specific policy for that is good. End of the year transfers, May, June, and 2 weeks into July 15th, is the selectmen and the advisory committee, and since it should go downhill, so to speak, to us, we can have a policy to state, if you want us to approve this, this is what we would like to happen. As far as the rest of town policies, the majority of them, that is generally the realm of the selectmen.
You already called the meeting to order, right?
Yes.
The Pledge of Allegiance, so we make sure we.
I was gonna forego,
Okay.
since it's
Workshop? Okay, fine.
it's just a
I think everybody was pretty
relaxed,
patriotic yesterday,
non-official business meeting or anything.
so- Okay.
There's other Mass General laws that also pertain, and I pull those up and put those on the rolls in the planning documents that I have pulled from other communities. And that's something that I just threw out there.
And one of those was a, let's see, let me get to it.
Also, if you look at the Association of Town Finances Handbook, it does say that we can end up setting up our own policies for our use.
For our use, but I mean, within regards to the
Oh,
town.
right, for towns.
For instance, the stabilization policy example that you gave, it contains in it, that, we believe, it says the advisory committee, recommends or would like to see 5 to 10% of the annual operating budget, which that would be great, and it helps in a lot of ways for finance, because, like you go to the bank, nothing gets you a loan faster than if you show them you don't need the money. If you're broke and you,
So where do we think it is now?
well, what the,
Now, it's a little over 1%.
Okay.
If you look at that document. I got the latest balance off the,
Oh, sorry, I didn't look at the next page,
Yep.
sorry.
by the way, this is also from another community, and our participation for even other policies such as financial, a great example of working together is the town of Air, which is about the same size as us, plus or minus a couple hundred people, around 8,000, plus or minus. If you look at their financial policy, it has all the selectmen's and all the advisory members' signatures on it. It was a joint effort, not like what we have had here.
Right now.
In 13, we tried to, the advisory committee tried to end up getting the select board to look at a policy that was written up, presented to them. After some deliberation, they chose to do it as goals, and it was on the website up until, I think, just about the time that Carter came on. And it was taken off the website.
So if you look on the town, Templeton's website, the main page, there's a little listing. It has like town general bylaws, town meetings, annual town reports, and you'll see town policies or financial town policies. You click on that and you'll see the financial policies. And in that policy, there is a section for the general stabilization policy. And with regards to what Will just said about working together and specifically a finance or advisory committee, it says the policy, down by the general stabilization policy, this policy shall be administered by the town administrator with advice and input of the town treasurer. Didn't confer, offer, communicate, ask for suggestions to look at, recommendations, or nothing from this committee. And on here it says the target of the general stabilization is of not less than 5% of the prior year's omnibus operating budget. And we will strive to put in or appropriate 0.5% of the prior year's budget
Thank you.
to build up to that 5%. So,
What page is that on, Jeff?
Is that, it's under financial?
page 13
Page
of the
13.
policy.
Thank you.
It's an image.
So my only thought my thought is, and we certainly could put, what we'd recommend, would like to see on the advisory committee's tab on the town website. The only thing is, if people go and look at, say, the advisory, and they see 5 to 10, and then you go look at the town policy, and it says 5%, it's like, well, are you guys, talking to each other? What's is it 5, is it 10, is it in the middle? Does anybody know where it should go? But again, when this policy was done, and, they didn't even give us an email, they just said, we're doing a policy, and that's what they did. I think they went through either, not sure if the DOR.
They
or
got
the
it under a
Collins
grant
Institute.
With Collins.
Institute, which, when they were on their policy writing stampede, and supposedly they have more policies that are supposed to be being worked on. But again, something financial, and I mean, they talk about working together, and we gotta confer this and that, the advisory committee, but here's an example of a policy that they chose not to confer with us about.
Well, we actually took the opportunity and made a presentation on the stabilization.
And-
Paul Grubb got a nice PowerPoint presentation that he presented to the select board, and it was like, okay, so what? I mean, there was no reaction to it whatsoever, that we'll take that under consideration, we'll think about it in our plan. I mean, that was our step to try to start working with them, I think. I mean, that's basically what we,
And it was a vote by the committee to request to be on the selectmen's agenda. to do that PowerPoint presentation. And Paul Grubby did a lot of work on it, put it together. We went there, presented it, and it was like, okay, thank you much. And it was just, it was kind of, this year's budget hearings were a little bit better, but last year's, when we had a joint presentation type of thing, I just got the picture that we were there for window dressing, because it was almost, if you asked a question, it was, really? I mean, there was really a lack of input taken from the advisory committee. This year, like I said, it was a little bit better, but, and maybe that's the process. It was the second year doing that type of format. Again, two of us made all 4 of the presentations, and when they had the hearing, the thing about the override for the ambulance service, myself, Paul Grubb, I thought somebody else was there, but again, it wasn't full participation, and we weren't like on the agenda. It was, you wanna come and listen, you can come and listen, but this is an example of policy, and I mean, we weren't even conferred with or sent to us and said, hey, this is what we got, what do you think? I mean, and that's the only thing what I think of is, if we put something on that says 5 to 10%, and then somebody looks at this and they say 5, it gives you the appearance, at least in my view,
Oh, I think
that,
it's important to really be realistic too.
what is it? Is it 5%? Is it 10? You guys talking together? You were, again,
Again, if the policy is 5% in the general and 1% in the capital, we should probably stay consistent with that. But, like you said, we're not even there. We're not even at 5%.
no, we're not.
When you did the numbers, Will, did you take out the school budget?
School budget's not in that.
Okay.
It's ju-
Just
Oh,
because
well,
that's what the
No,
policy says.
that's the entire, excuse me, that's the entire budget. It has to be done on the entire budget. If you look at other communities, they typically run between 5 and 10%.
Well, the policy
Some,
just,
some communities, believe it or not, run over 10%.
well, it
Those
just,
are the exceptions, not the rules.
right, so this just says that the omnibus budget less the school debt. So, unless they're just talking about that 417,000.
Which disappears, this is the last year of
Right.
that payment, well, till it gets added on to the elementary school, so.
Well, right, and then that'll get, okay.
And whatever that debt is gonna end up being, probably a couple of years away. Using Ashburnham as an example, they were right on track. I mean, they had the bond, they had everything. They were right on track, and I think it was about 2 years thereabouts after their school opened, that's when their tax rate jumped almost $4, $3 and something cents a thousand. And from the town administrator and the selectmen, the majority of, most of that was, or a good part of that was to pay for the school.
It wasn't too many years ago that the town of
So-
Lunenburg had well over $1 million in their stabilization fund. And like I had said the last meeting, if you want to end up going to see best of class, go to Westminster. The
Well-
general law allows you to have multiple stabilization funds for different things.
Right.
Right, and I agree with the principle, but if you don't have the revenues coming in, so to me, your revenues have to come in to enable you to beef up that stabilization fund. Now, I think some of once the free cash is certified, some of that money, a percentage of it, should go into that fund. It should not go to fund the FY19 budget. You shouldn't be forward funding money from last year. You could say, oh, I'm gonna have $150,000, so I know I can ask for less because I'm gonna have it. That's just poor management.
Typically, DOR's position has been that free cash is for in the budget's year, the particular budget when it's declared free cash, and then that coming year, it's used for a one-time purchase. Example
Yeah,
would be the police car
sure.
and the DPW truck, if there was sufficient amount that they could end up warranting it out of that.
In Westminster, they also have the advantage of, I think it's, I don't know, it's a couple $1 million, something like that, their share of revenue from the landfill. And
Right, I mean, I think that's a big problem in town here, is our revenues are essentially from the people. I mean, you do have some businesses, but it is mostly from the people.
one of the biggest tax evaluation, property tax evaluation is the Templeton Fish and Game Club. According to the records, the stuff that the town filed, in getting the school funding started, I mean, it's like $5
Well,
million.
that's all the camps and
Yeah,
everything
but,
else.
I mean, it's $5 million valuation, so whatever the tax rate is, I mean, whatever the taxes are.
But those houses are owned by the people, but they're sitting on basically rented land. So those people are actually paying the taxes on those buildings and not really Templeton Fish and Gun Club.
But,
It's however
I
legally.
mean, that's what it's listed as, Templeton Fish and Game Club. And would be the property, like you said, that they actually own.
There's some beautiful camps over there.
But, I mean, that's the advantage that Westminster has, and like Winchendon, they have a benefactor. Someone used to live in Winchendon or something, moved, very successful. They have like I'll say it's like a trust fund or something where they receive money from it. You know, I mean, a lot of times, we just say, we didn't have a rich uncle, so to speak. I mean, Ashburnham has Cushing Academy, you know, some towns have this guy or this family, you know. The city of Gardner, they had,
Do they
you know,
get,
the
they
chance.
actually get tax money from
Uh,
Cushing?
Huh?
I thought Cushing was exempt since they were school.
No, but they give,
Oh,
they
okay, yes,
do
yes.
for the town.
Money in kind, yes.
Like Leo LaChance used to do in Gardner, and Simplex. I mean, you know, there are a lot of things that, can't think of the gentleman's name. They paid for like the new wing on the hospital, and they've done things, you know, for I mean, a lot of surrounding towns, they have these like benefactors or situations where it helps them out.
Yep.
You know, we used to have that, you know, way back when.
Well, you just lost a benefactor in town. His building,
That's his, that's what thank you. I don't know if anybody saw it. Templeton lost Rudy Sundstrom. He's a World War II veteran, submariner. If you see any of these houses with these, like Minutemen
Yep.
figurines
Yep.
out of wood, those are his homes, his rental property that he owns. Next door to Boynton Library, he
Yep.
bought that house, redid it. I don't know I haven't seen him the last time I saw him.
my understanding was it was gonna be donated to the
He was gonna give
Historical
that-
Society.
Well, he offered that to the library, and I think there was some boom, boom, boom thing. So I think it's gonna end up with the
Yeah.
Historical Society, but, last time I saw him was at a selectmen's meeting, and he asked a question, and he was an interesting guy, I thought, to have to come to a selectman. He was one of those old timers who was gonna ask a question, he never knew, it was gonna be on the agenda most likely, but he was an interesting guy. And he asked the question, and the chairman told, we ain't talking about that tonight, and he's, oh, I'm sorry, I thought this was a meeting where people get to come and ask questions and stuff. I'll be quiet, and he got up and he left.
Yep.
But he's an interesting guy, and
He
he's
was.
been a benefactor to the town, like I said, any of those houses you see is his rental property, and I know he had bought that house, and then it had a fire, and repaired it all up, and he had-
Restored it back. to the
He had
original.
tried to, I thought he was gonna, intended to
Oh, yeah.
donate it to the library, but there was some snafu or something, wherever it's gonna go, but he passed away. Sorry to see that, cause he was a neat guy to talk to. I
He
thought.
was.
Yeah,
He was.
I thought
He- When we were working on this building, he would come in and take a look.
and you
and-
never know that he had a penny to his name, I mean,
The man was, he wasn't poor, let's put it that way.
but he was, like I said, you talked with him, you wouldn't know he had it, but
He had a number of properties in town too. He owns one of the buildings down that way, the Victorian.
Yeah, wherever you see those Minutemen, little
Yep.
figurine wood things or whatever, those are always his houses.
His daughter's in one of the houses not too far from the library
But,
too.
And it's, I'm sorry to see that in the paper today. But we all go sometime. So, back to, what our role, I mean, we can discuss things and we can, wanna do this. And we certainly create things and put them on our website. How much input, how it's gonna be received by the select board right now is, I see, yep, okay, we'll take that, but not a lot of substance. It's just the way I feel. Been observing the way things are going, the number of employees, positions unfilled, leaving. I don't know what the problem is, I don't know what the issue is, but, I think it's more than, salaries. I really do.
Well, sometimes the
Eric
only
is
effective
leaving.
way to get something done though is, through my experience, I went to the selectmen's meeting, not this last Monday, but one Monday before. We're in the process of getting a monument put in to one of the cemeteries. And the monument company had already written up an order for myself and 3 other people, sent in 2 checks for foundations at the end of April, and here we are, we're almost at the end of June, and there was no foundations or anything. I went to the cemeteries and parks and said, have you got the orders, or what's the story here? And the person that's in charge of the cemeteries and parks basically said he wasn't even aware of any order or anything, and was not aware of any foundations being required. And my concern was here I am with other people, not getting the done for the monument company. How many monument companies are out there that have sent stuff in for them to process? Well, it seems and I also pointed out that you don't have your DPW director still listed on the website after he's been gone for some period of time. And even worse was the secretary and administrative assistant, who had been gone for at least 3 years, still listed on the website.
So who is running the DPW right now?
Officially,
Yeah, there should be somebody in charge of the department, right?
your town administrator.
We have an interim. The town administrator is serving
He's
as an
acting,
interim.
he's acting as the DPW director with the highway foreman and the cemetery foreman watching things like
Yep.
in the field, but,
Do they have the job advertised?
it was on the MMA website, it is gone now. I'd look.
He says it's on the website. In the report that he put out today, he says that they have been on the website for a couple of weeks. That's the town website.
There was on the MMA website, but I think it was Thursday, yeah. It was off, gone.
Well, the interesting fact that I had to go there to get something done, and the select chairman tried to take it, end up saying, have you seen the administrator, when it's a policy and process issue versus a day-to-day issue of managing something. And believe it or not, they had Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday to correct that. They corrected the web page, and on Monday, I was notified, along with the other people, that our foundations were in. So their last day is Thursday, they found the checks and cashed them in that short period of time, which shows that who's minding the store?
So, like I said, as, you know, we can come up and discuss policies and, you know, things that we'd like to present, whether it's received by the selectmen and whether they're even gonna listen or utilize us in any way or fashion. From what I've seen so far, I think that it's been no, but,
What disturbs me as past supervisor and management in my past is that we have basically had 3 30-year-plus employees that are gone, and typically you don't end up getting rid of employees that long. You find out if it's a training issue, you have them go to training, and if the training doesn't take, then you end up letting them go. And one of them was said to being let go because they had made a mistake. Well, my question is to the selectmen, and I'm thinking about going to them and asking this is, okay, if somebody makes a mistake, multiple mistakes, you should go to talk to him, being the town administrator. Town meeting warrant, the cemetery issue. I mean, it goes on and on. There's a number of issues that are not taken care of. Who's in charge?
so, with this, here's some thoughts or any feelings of which way, I mean, other than the ones that, like I said, we have them, we sent the policy with regards to end of the year transfers and the reserve fund policy. They've had those for over a year, and I don't think
They're not on.
they're not on yet.
And the
Even
one-time
though-
revenue policy,
There was an email from the town administrator saying they would assist us in getting them on, but hasn't been done yet. And I couldn't email Holly till probably week after next, till she's back from vacation. I think today was Carter's only day he was in the office.
today, that was it.
Eric has been in, but, I went in and say hi to him, said I was sorry to see him go, but he's not gonna be too involved in things, cause he's just the situation. So, and as Mike suggested a couple meetings ago at our next business meeting, so to speak, a regular meeting, I'll entertain a motion, bring that up, put that on the agenda, and we can request, you know, okay, if we can't have access, where's the policy for it? And if not, you know, put it on for us, or give us the access so we can, because, you know, we have some people that can go on there and do that.
Well, I'm
It's-
surprised is that
It's,
the administrator complains of having too much work, but doesn't relinquish the fact that you have department heads that should be managing their own page and committees that should be managing their own page to put stuff up on.
it's just, you know, I mean, it's not like we're gonna go in there and reconfigure the town website. It's just our page if we wanna update something. So if we send you something and say, hey, use this, you won't be looking at something old. And we won't have to, won't be such it's kind of a simple thing to request and to be able to do. So, anyway, that's, you know, that was the one thing I saw on the policies. If we go and put, I don't think we should be putting something, I don't know, if you put something different or that contradicts a town policy, I think people look at it and get the idea like, these guys know what they're doing, you know, is it 5, 10, it just creates, or it would add to, I don't know, the confusion or the thought that things are really disconnected with regards to Templeton town government.
Well, it is. I mean, when you present the
Yeah.
policy to them and they don't even talk to you, that's disconnect.
But, so I just wouldn't wanna add to it by conflicting too much with, like I said, they didn't even send it to us and say, what do you think?
So when was this, financial management policy, when was this put up and made effective? And it was accepted by?
When was it originally done?
No, this one right here.
It was accepted by the Board of Selectmen, exactly when?
October.
Was it
So
Oc-
this,
was it
just this
October?
past year.
Yeah,
This policy, the one that's up on the website?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the
Yes.
one that we were all looking at.
let's see.
That was in October.
October 10, 17,
Yeah, it's at the very bottom.
Oh, it's the other one.
so.
Okay.
And who drafted this?
The Collins Institute. It was done with a grant.
Okay.
Spelling error right here.
It wasn't,
Um, It
let me
was part
s-
of the community, I think it was part of the community compact, and they got a grant, I think it was 5,000, something. Anyway, to do, because a while back, that was their big thing, we don't have any policies, we gotta have
So
policies.
they got a grant to have this written, somebody wrote it for the town.
Yep.
And the Board of Selectmen was asked to approve it,
Well,
but
that's,
it concerns, it has financial policies in it that would necessarily concern us as per our job description.
well,
with the overseer.
it doesn't help to have, look this over. I mean, it involves things that we're gonna be recommending on
Right, so
and
I'm
looking
just
at.
trying to make sure I understand this before I get fired up, that the committee didn't sign off on it. If the Board of Selectmen was asked to sign off on it, with a spelling error in someone's name, by the way, then why was this committee not asked to also sign off on it? I'm assuming these guys didn't have a whole lot of say over those little finer points that we're getting interested in right now, because it's a pretty broad document, it's pretty extensive. So, that's part of what our job would be to look at that, look at these smaller things. I'm just trying to understand.
So,
Nobody from the Collins even approached the advisory committee,
so,
which typically, if you look at most communities,
Yes.
they're involved.
right, so who initiated the process with Collins? Was that the board?
Or the town administrator.
Administrator.
Didn't it, Sarah?
Combination, but,
Okay.
I mean,
Well, it's here, there's nothing we can do about it now.
right.
How frequently does a policy like this get updated?
that's what?
How frequently does a policy like this get updated?
You should end up, I mean, there's no real rule,
Yeah.
but the rule of thumb is you should review it at least yearly or at least every couple of years
Right.
to see if it's pertinent. I mean, you just had the Modernization Act take place. You should look at it at least when that act was done to see if it still falls in with the requirements under that.
Okay.
And an interesting thing, is under the grants and debt management. I mean, you read through it, I mean, there's some stuff that I don't even think the town, the town as in what's presented or put in front of town meeting is even being followed.
Well, I find it interesting
It's a
because
policy you have and you don't even follow it.
I find it interesting because back in 2012, when I talked to the treasurer at that time, she had written up a policy on debt that she had the selectmen sign off at that time, and since that time, it's just, who knows where it is? I mean, at one time, I had a copy of that, and you don't hear of that. You don't have a place that you can go to even look at that if you were to come in and it's not on the website.
So when is the free cash normally certified? About approximately what month?
Usually hopefully by the end of the year,
Well, generally,
October, November.
well,
Some,
September.
Do you know when it was done last year?
This past year, I think it was certified
November,
September,
December
October,
timeframe.
October.
So it was after this came out.
Yes,
Okay, and did they transfer 35% into the general stabilization and 10% into capital?
no.
And their reasoning for not going with their policy?
You'd have to ask them.
Well, I didn't know if you guys had asked them in previous, that's right above it. Are we in the same document?
That was a
Yeah.
question that I had asked
Right there,
the chairman and got no answer.
okay. Well, because there's another part in here that says the free cash available should be 3 to 5% of your total operating budget minus the school as well. Minus the school budget as well. So since we're looking at policies and since we've asked and we wanna be aware of what that is, it would seem to me that our free cash is on the low side as well. Or will be on the very low side as well.
And it says, the town will endeavor to annually generate free cash of 5% of the prior year omnibus.
Right.
But the only way they can do that is to look at cost-cutting measures but in this case, you're not paying a DPW superintendent for so long you haven't paid him because that position hasn't gone filled. And there's the other positions where,
Well, I don't know if we can say that, because if the TA is serving as the interim, we don't know what's happening to that potential pay. Is he waiving that, or he or she, or,
To
we
answer your
don't
question,
know.
I think, Tony, about when free cash was certified, our special town meeting was November 14th of
Okay.
17.
Okay.
And they used it then. I believe it was in October.
Okay.
it got certified.
okay, so it was after this policy came out. But you're right, but then I would say, is the TA qualified to run those departments?
I have no knowledge
You
of
know,
that.
because usually when you collect a salary for something, you're supposed to be qualified in
Right,
that
and I don't
position.
know. I
Okay,
I
right.
can't say anyone is
Yeah.
or is not, but all I can say is that from where I sit, it's very unclear.
Okay, yeah, I would agree with
I
that.
don't think he has any credentials to be a tree warden. And
We
that's
don't
one
have a
of-
tree warden, that's why we had a line item for an arborist.
That's one of the, well, that's
Right.
because Alan left.
Alan left.
Right,
So,
but no matter who was gonna take in after Alan, they
Because
were
they did
assuming
it.
there wouldn't be an arborist, because that was special training that Mr. Mayo had specifically to avoid that.
and so, yeah,
Right.
it's adding up. It's the
Yes.
costs are adding up, and it's like it's getting bigger instead of getting more efficient, as what was the reason given for combining all these departments like developmental services and this and that. It's trying to cut cost without being efficient and providing the services in a
That
way that
explains something.
it's stated.
No, just
So
the light just went on. But
So at this point, we just need to sort of push forward. We need to talk about how we're going to, for fiscal 19, how are we gonna help push these policies that they've given us forward and
Good luck.
roll it into our job as a committee. I don't like it either, but I feel
I don't-
as if
I'm
our
not- I'm
hands
not
are
disagreeing
tied
with you. I'm
with
just-
regard to this document at this time.
Yep.
I think there are gonna be bigger fish to fry, and I think arguing over 5% or 7% or 10%, what does this paper say? Where we already have evidence that last year, when this document was released, a week later, they didn't follow their own policy. They being the people who signed it, which would be the Board of Selectmen, and at the annual town meeting. They didn't transfer, as it says right on page 10 or whatever, or page 9, that they're gonna transfer. Upon certification of the town's free cash, blah, blah, blah. 5% to OPEB, 10% to capital stabilization, 35% to general, you know what I mean? That wasn't done last October, when the free cash was certified.
And you'd have,
And this document was a week old
you
at
have
that
to go
point.
to, in order to take and put it in, you have to go to an annual town meeting or special town meeting to do it.
Right.
It takes a majority vote for those, when you go to the meetings like that, to put it in.
Right,
It takes 2/3 to get it out.
right,
Right.
but it just wasn't done.
They did put money at the special town meeting in November. They took $137,500 and put it in the general stabilization fund. They put $40,000 in the capital stabilization fund, and $20,000 was put in the OPEB.
Okay, so what percentage of the free cash was that, do you know?
It was what, almost $1 million?
It was over $1 million.
So if it was $1 million and they only put, how much in, general? 137?
137,500.
That's only 13%, that's not 35 like they
Right.
recommend, if it's $1 million. Probably shouldn't do public math on TV, but, I mean, I'm ballparking that, but, so,
Using a different math, that's all.
oh, maybe it's a metric system.
Cause 9 + 4 is 13.
Hey, I had a math
42.
professor tell me he did his master's thesis on 1.9 and 2 being the same, so I raised my hand and I said, so if I go in the grocery store and it's $2 and all I have is $1.90, I can just tell the cashier, don't worry, $1.90 is the same and I'll be all set, right? He got all flabbergasted and didn't know what to say. I said, that must be new math, because 1 and 1 still equals 2. Or
So,
it did.
okay, so I think you just accounted for about 200,000, what happened to the other 800,000?
Let's see. There was money spent
On a number of items.
to pay the deficits from 13, 14, and 15. That was 223,396. Let's see. And that was Article 1, and then they put money in the stabilization fund. There was and if you're counting, there was 190,000 that was allowed to roll forward. That wasn't used at all.
That should be on the website somewhere, right? The
Actually, that was, it will be under, it's in the budget documents
Yep.
for 19.
It
It's
should be,
listed-
yes.
It's listed in there.
Okay, I'll look at them. I mean, it should be in the town warrant for the special,
I'm sure it is.
I went to that meeting, I remember that one. But I left.
And then there
after this.
was $30,000 to supplement amounts from the FY18 budget.
So it sounds like a lot of it was going to pay,
It's $30.
Back- well, back bills due, if you will. Whatever the reason they were due, you know, it's different people at the time, so,
I don't know about back bills, but it was used to take and end up making purchases.
well, I mean, and
Different
like you
things.
said, I mean, if they're making, depending on what they're purchasing, but if they're correcting deficits because of audits from 12, 13, 14, you really don't have a choice, you have to do that.
That's
and
correct.
that-
Right.
And I think that fund should be used for that,
And that's a one-time
yeah.
thing,
Right.
so I mean,
Right.
that's, as far as using the free cash for one time is fine, but backfilling a budget is,
No, backfilling a budget is not an acceptable, to me, use of the free cash, because you're
yeah.
sort of forward funding things.
then there was, it's $167,500 to be used for boiler replacement. Highway bond, or where was that? And $160,000 to buy the, 6-wheel dump truck.
Yep.
So that was, again, though, that's,
I really should have made a list of all the new trucks that the town's gotten in the last like 5 years, so I can keep track. Cause I know
They
it's
should have it.
significant, like 6-wheeled truck and the 1-ton truck and then the plow and then
Yeah.
this, like, it's very confusing to me.
in like
but-
2012, yeah, because I was sightseeing. they bought a loader out of chapter 90 funds. That's 180,000, somewhere around there. 16, 15 or 16. Pretty sure it was, I
Yep.
don't think it was 17.
It's
They
one of
bought
those
the
years.
excavator.
Yep.
200,000, a little more. I think it was a little more, but they got 14 for a trade-in. And it's just the highway department. Then they have this 6-wheel dump truck ordered. They just approved, gonna sign a purchase order for the 1-ton truck
Yes.
for the highway
Yeah,
department.
they talked about that at the last Board of Selectmen meeting.
So that's the highway department's new stuff. Well, plus they bought, a used truck for 20 grand.
There should be a list of all capital assets in the town and their value each year and their
What I
valuation.
found
I'm
interesting,
just sort of curious.
Yeah.
It's not really,
what I found interesting at that meeting was they were spending the money from the meal tax before it even came in.
but that was already decided at town meeting. It was already,
They would decide to
Something that-
use the money, not to
Right.
take and spend it from, you ask most people, and they'd say, use the money. They didn't think they were gonna
Yeah.
end up spending it before they got it in.
How do you spend money with that you don't have?
I mean, I don't know how most people budget, but I would say quite a few people don't spend the money that they don't have.
I'm of the same mind as you with that. I am. But I also understand why
does
they
it.
didn't wanna discuss it at the meeting.
Everybody does that. Go to the grocery store, $120. Charge it. I'll have the money in my paycheck next week to make that payment, I hope. If not, I'll just carry it forward till the next month. But, anyways, that's, the special town meeting of November is the majority of, the free cash that had been built up over the course of 4 years or so. It covers pretty much most of the spending. This past town meeting, we did a little bit with it, and like I said, there's 190,000 that they allowed to just roll forward.
Okay?
But
If you-
again, in doing some of this stuff, they violated or didn't, failed to follow their own.
Policy.
Right.
But there was a couple issues that had to be done. I mean, you have a deficit, you have a bill, you gotta cover it, and,
Well, I mean, when they have that free cash, while they should look at this, I mean, any must-pay bills, you have to do that. And then really what's left over, then the 35% should go into. But must-pay should be very few and far between.
Well, they started out before this budgetary, this budgetary season with 399,000, and at annual town meeting, they spent, it looks like about 200,000, because the stabilization fund really now has, no, not the stabilization, but they ended up showing a balance of like 196,000 or something.
yeah, that was after, has not been spent, and it was allowed to roll forward.
Yep.
Which, that will be added to whatever the free cash will be this year, if it's certified with, and there's no issues, which is always I just thought personally, rather than letting it roll forward, we should put it someplace. But, so again, the uphill battle would probably be convincing the selectmen that, when they have these policies, and especially it involves, financial stuff, that we're gonna end up having to deal with in the end, making recommendations at town meeting. And yet you have the statutory right to do the policy stuff, the town policy, but does
But-
it hurt to run it by this committee?
Not
and
at all.
have, maybe we see something that you don't see, or didn't think of.
Yeah.
Or we'll ask the
Or the other way
question that
around,
either-
or maybe they thought of something that they didn't share with us. But to me, if you're not gonna follow your policy, the people of the town have the right to understand why you're not following the policies that you accepted, regardless of what it is.
And some of that is, I think the people don't really realize it or know it, because you gotta go out of your way to read all this stuff. I don't care if it's on the town website or not. And if you don't have a computer or you don't go online, I mean, you can come in and request it, but it takes a lot of effort and time to read all this stuff. And, you know, I think the people should be able to trust the people they elect to look out for them, that they will, if they create a policy, they will follow it, or, you know, try as hard as they can and not just ignore it with the excuse of, well, you know, we had a special circumstance, well, we had a special.
So if you let that money roll forward, where does that sit?
It's in the closet, and when the balance sheet, and the books are cleared and submitted to the DOR, it's the,
Where is it supposed to sit? It's supposed to sit in a bank account drawing interest for
Well,
one thing.
that was my
I
question.
mean,
Are we?
yeah.
Okay,
is
that's
it-
what I thought you meant,
Yeah,
yeah.
well, is it getting any interest rate on that, or?
Whatever they can get.
Okay, so it is something where,
One of the things that I want to take a point out as far as the budget
Because you want
process,
it to be-
yeah,
if you look in the financial handbook that you all have, it states the budget process and the practical steps in the budget process. Most communities end up setting up guidelines early on, and it's usually between the selectman, the administrator, and the finance or advisory, along with, and in a good working community, it's also the school is involved. And I mean, when I saw the school being involved this coming year, it was initiated by them. In the past, believe it or not, it has been initiated by this committee. And the first meetings were with selectmen by the advisory, when I first came on. Then it was, we ended up, or one particular year, we got pushed, so we had the school committee, the selectmen, and the advisory met in Camelot. They could end up discussing, and there was some things about, everybody's gonna accept over $2 tax rate for the school. There was a discussion on that, and that seemed to, right after that, there was no more meetings per se. And then it was in 16, I initiated meetings along with the rest of the advisory committee with the select board, and we met in the Kiva. And there was a discussion about budgeting and stuff like that. And there was some reluctance, if you look back at that meeting, on the basis of some selectmen. So, actually, there was one selectman that didn't want to come. That's my impression, because there was not the 5 selectmen. I mean, those are the attempts that were made and initiated by this committee over the years. How do you end up changing that if you have reluctance?
Well, we say that's a new fiscal year, hopefully it's mostly a new committee, maybe we can start fresh with them and let them understand that we're not here to be adversarial to them, we're here to help them and be representative of the town, so we can go in front of the town in a town meeting and say, you know what, yep, we think they did their due diligence, we agree with this. And, I mean, ideally, you want to be kind of lockstep at the town meeting with them on most issues, that they're gonna come up with policies or wanna spend money for the town that's an efficient way of spending your tax money, and that we as a committee agree to that.
My sense has been this: if you ask questions, then you're looked upon as not somebody that they want to work with. I mean,
Well-
and you're trying to understand what they're trying to end up and working together to understand issues. But it's not taken that way. Remember that incident I told you about asking when they were looking for a permanent TA?
Yeah.
And they said they had options, and to me, it was an innocent question, is, please share the options with us, and I was basically told, if I wanted to know, I should become a selectman.
I mean,
I mean, it wasn't just for
that's
me.
certainly wrong, but is it the select board's responsibility to say, to find a new TA? Where Carter's just temporary, we know that we do eventually need to hire a permanent TA. Is it ultimately their responsibility to do so?
That's correct.
Okay, and have they come forward with a plan on how they're gonna rectify the fact that we have someone that's not here all the time, and how do you efficiently manage a town? I don't know whether he's doing a good job or not, but because of the laws and he's semi-retired, I know he can only work so many hours. It seems to me that TA should be a full-time job.
They, when they gave him this contract that he has now, it's a 1-year contract.
I thought it was an open-ended contract.
Nah, it's,
No, I think it's 1 year. I
1
saw
year?
it online.
that, they made the point of saying, we no longer have an interim, we have a town administrator, because we appointed him for a year. But the contract is for 16 hours a week. Or maybe he puts in more, works more than 16 hours,
Paid an awful lot of money
at
for
home or
16
this and that,
hours.
but, the contract is for 16 hours.
That's a part-time. My understanding is they call him as a part-time administrator.
But they made a point at the meeting that, we don't have an interim town administrator. We have a town administrator because we appointed him for a year.
Doesn't that make the DPW position even more confusing then?
Yeah,
Uh,
because you have a part-time or interim guy doing a
Right.
part-time job over here too. I mean, it's a part-time.
Yeah. Okay.
The good news is you're saving that little bit of salary money. I mean, that's about the only good, it's about the only good thing I can see out of that situation.
Someone pointed out to me is that
Benefits.
But it's not
here we are,
worth,
we have a salary for a
1,500.
part-time administrator of roughly $70,000. The mayor of Gardner only gets $88,000, and the city of Gardner is 2.5 times as big. And their whole budget for that particular department is
$5 an hour.
less than what we pay for our department here.
Hubbardston pays 85 for a full-time. They say that to keep up, I mean, people say, well, people should know. I mean, it's almost a full-time job,
Sure.
if you wanna keep up and check all of this stuff out.
Oh, okay.
I don't keep track of my hours anymore that I put into looking at it, and it's not nearly as what I used to, but I spend
okay.
over 60 hours a week just reading stuff, looking at stuff, and I was just, I mean, it's my own choice to do that, but I mean,
Sure.
if you wanna be aware and go to a selectmen's meeting and know what they're talking about when they say something, oh yeah, I know. I mean, it's a lot of time to read all this stuff.
Yep.
And I don't know if that's part of the plan, you count on people not gonna bother to check, and you just present stuff and say, this is how it is, oh yeah, this is our policy, and if you don't check it, how do you know? So, it is a new fiscal year, it is 5 new people. Well, yeah, there'll be 5 new people eventually. And, like, the thing to start to see, what the reception's gonna be is, being able to put stuff on our own tab of the town website. You know, if we wouldn't end up, hey, you said you didn't have, you sent the one on the website. Well, we emailed you one a year and a half ago. We can't put it on the website because you don't allow us to. So either you gotta do it or allow us to put it on there, and we'll put it on there. So then when you print it out and fill it out, it'll be the updated one. And we won't have this, you know, 2 meetings to do something that should have been done in one, or could have possibly been done in one, because you filled out the wrong old form. That's not on us, that's on you. We gave you the information. You didn't post it on the website, and you went and downloaded the old stuff. It's, and that would be, I think that would be a litmus test of sorts to see how the coming year would go. You know, you have an example of, you said, well, this is the form that's on the, well, here's the email, we emailed you the new stuff, you know, last February. And here
So
it
have they
is.
even addressed us taking over our own tab? Who has to address that?
Ultimately, it should be the Board of Selectmen. I don't know if it'll get to the selectmen. If it's gonna be the town administrator that's gonna do that,
Wouldn't it be the administrator, because he's working a day-to-day, and he's got a web administrator that he could end up saying, relinquish this page to this particular department or committee, and give them the access. We have access, but not access to take it into putting anything on and changing it.
In order to be an independent committee, which this is supposed to be, you should have complete access and be the only people that can put things on or take things off your website or your page.
You
it's
think
not
so?
like we wanna go around bouncing around in, you know, town bylaws or anything. We, you know, our tab, you go to the advisory committee and
You
there's
can
stuff
make it so
listed
that
there.
you just can't do that. They can give us access to certain pages only.
No, we have, you can get access, if you go on to the the advisory committee page, okay? There's a login at the bottom. The login is only for that page. We were given usernames and passwords.
To get
We
it.
got in, but we couldn't change anything,
Yeah, so it's like, yeah,
because the tabs to take and make those changes weren't available to us.
Right, so it's being locked out by the administrator of the website. So it just needs to be fixed.
and I think the best bet is to go to the Board of Selectmen. I mean, town administrator's supposed to work for the Board of Selectmen, so if you say, hey, Selectmen, hey, is this the policy be that, you know, we can do this and this? Yeah, that sounds good. Okay, well, then direct
Does-
it so it goes.
Does anybody else that has a page on the town website have that capability? Not that that's important, but
The town clerk does, I'm aware of, and the assessor,
Deputy assessor does their stuff.
I know.
okay. Well, there's a precedent then.
I think the accountant has been on her page,
Yeah, I believe the Board of Health can.
and Board of Health, yes.
Because they have, yeah, they.
I would
have
say
a lot
most of the
authority.
departments in the town hall, the department heads have access
Let's
to that.
do it, to put that, yeah, because like the assessors, they put up the new tax rate stuff,
Yep.
new property listings and all of that stuff. So,
Well,
and she
the-
does that regularly.
The town
so-
clerk puts in, after an election, she puts all that information up.
Yeah.
She puts up the change in bylaws, she puts up what's voted on at town meeting, because she has to attest to that, and when she sends it
But
into
nobody's
the
taking
state.
stuff down.
Yeah, so, and like I said, Mike, he might have the best starting point. Is, you know, why can't we have that? Well, if it's a policy, well, show it to us, and if you don't have one, well, then, you know, come on. And that would be, you know, like I said, that would be a starting point, this, the new fiscal year, pretty much a new committee, see what the movement would be. Mike asked, with regards to the school budget and spending, there was a, I don't know who the person was, but they sent an email to the advisory, email, and I forwarded it to everybody
Mhm.
about, I don't know, a Facebook thing about they send in principals and
Yep.
administrative staff out there. And, someone asked about, you know, what say-so do we have about that? I looked at that as an informational thing, so down the road, if you're looking at a school budget and they, you know, wanna propose increases for this and this, you can, well, is this part of, you know, this travel, this is what is this considered? Is this, you know, training, is this networking, is this along the lines of the MMA?
So do they have a line in their budget for professional development?
They
It
do.
seems like that's what it was, and if that is approved, how deep in the weeds do we need to get to say, okay, if she went, I don't remember where it was that she went for the conference, but if it was California, but there was one in Boston, you know, why, maybe that's the only place it was offered, and as part of her duties, she needs to attend so many of these to help the thing. So there's professional development things that, I know, I've been to conferences that I wish were, you know, close, but they're not, because they're only offered in certain places.
And same thing with, well, even, like a deputy assessor, they have conferences, sometimes they're out near Springfield, sometimes they're only at the
Okay.
Cape.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, could you have it like in the middle of the state so everybody would roughly travel? So everybody, like,
Yeah.
if you're in little Western Mass, I mean, west of Orange, you gotta travel all the way to the Cape.
Yep.
You know? But I put that on there, and as far as what we really have to say about it, it's pretty much the same as what town meeting has to say about a school budget. It's,
That wasn't so all the time, though.
no, but town meeting, with a regional school district, town meeting can make a non-binding thing on a line item saying, look, we'd only like to approve this much. It ultimately goes back to the school committee, and they can either look at it and say, you know, yeah, we can do that, and certify another budget with that line item different. Or the school committee can say, you know what, no, that's what we want, that's what we think we need, that's it. So you get the certified school budget, and for a regional school district, it's up or down.
I mean, I think you hire a superintendent to, you know, a big part of his job is to manage that budget, and again, there are professional development things that teachers have to do. I mean, they,
But if, like, say, if we see a big jump in the professional development line item with that, when it gets around the budget, if you, and I know Chris, I don't know how long he's gonna be there, Chris Casman, but if you call him or email him, he'll come and you ask him
Yep.
and you know, he'd explain it. Well, you know, all of a sudden now there's some new law from the state and the federal thing, and we gotta do this, so now we gotta send people to get, you know, there may be, you know, very good reason for it. It was, I sent it forwarded mainly for an informational thing, so when you start looking at school budget and school spending, you know, like you said, first thing you think, professional, and there is, I don't know how much it is offhand, but they do have professional development in there. Teachers, for the paraprofessionals, it's a line item in their budget.
Historically, in 2012, 13, 14, and I think all the way up to 15, there was a budget subcommittee that would meet for the high school, the district. And at that particular time, when I first went on with some of my other members to that first meeting for the budget subcommittee, there was a selectman from Phillipston. They had two finance committee persons from Phillipston, and we showed up, and we were, as advisory members on, and there was no, the first year, there was no selectman from the community. And the feedback that we had gotten that first year that I was on with this other individual was that historically, and don't ask me why, they had not had representation from Templeton for that budget subcommittee. When we end up getting into it, it was a vote per person on that thing. When it's, the following year, I think this advisory committee looked at that budget subcommittee and said, well, if we're going to be represented on there, and we actually represent most of the community, because the biggest share was from Templeton, we should have a bigger say-so. So we ended up having 5 people go over to that meeting, and I think that was in 14 or 15. That was when the superintendent at that time made it, it pissed off one of our members. She made an ad hoc decision to not end up only having 2 members that year, and the following year, there was no advisory people on that, and that was the doing of the school committee. Once people showed up, they cut back on it as far as Templeton's involvement.
Well, are they just trying to even the playing field that each town has an equal voice in the subcommittee? I mean, even though we pay more, does that mean you get a bigger vote? I'm not sure.
Well, it's set up by the school committee, that budget subcommittee, and there is, like, I think there's either 3 or 4 school committee members. They represent Phillipston and Templeton. Like I said, they had 2 Phillipston advisory members. I mean, it astonished me that they can end up seeing that many as far as advisory, and they had 1 selectman. We had no selectman that first year going over there. I don't even know if they had notified the selectmen that the budget subcommittee and to attend. I couldn't tell you.
Well,
but I
we'll
know-
have to see what the process happened, how it works this year, and move forward.
Yeah, I did suggest to this superintendent that it would be good to end up having some representation from the finance, and he said he would talk to the school committee. I take it that he did, and they didn't do that. They did, this last year, had a representative from the select board from each committee.
They're
One.
following the Mass General Law, Chapter 71, where it states that in a regional district, one member.
Were they allowing finance
Yeah,
committee, I will use the term advisory finance interchangeably.
Yep.
Finance from Phillipston, advisory from Templeton. Were they allowing Phillipston people to attend and just not advisory from Templeton, or they just didn't let any finance/advisory members attend?
One of Phillipston's finance committee members
Yep.
is on the school committee,
Okay, so they're representing the school committee then.
and she's on the, I think it was,
No, she wasn't, she was on the school committee.
but she's on the budget subcommittee too.
Right, oh, yes, you're right, yes.
But in 13, I believe, and the superintendent, Miller, 13, yeah, sent a thing an email to the selectmen's, email or a letter to the selectmen's office, Templeton, inviting someone to be at the budget subcommittee, be on it, and she heard nothing back. That's, but, again, it's, like I said, the law is, as far as a voting member on the subcommittee, it's a selectman, a town administrator, or their representative, one
One.
from both
Okay.
towns.
Right.
And this past year, they had a joint meeting, and I think they agreed that one year it would be a Templeton selectman, and next year would be somebody from Phillipston.
I mean, as long as they're not saying, okay, Phillipston, you can have whoever you want there, but Templeton, you're limited to 1 selectman. As long as they're consistent with both, then,
Well, anybody can attend the meetings.
no, but I mean, as
Oh,
far
okay.
as a voting member, then they'd have a problem, but.
But they were doing it, and that's, one of them laws that I really got a problem with, but it is
I
what it
remember
is.
the year that we had two people on, and I sat in the audience, and the two members from advisory were only allowed to vote. They were when they went through the budgets, they were the only dissenting members, and they were saying, hold back on a few things. And it was voted on, passed on to the school committee. School committee just passed what was voted by and they were in the minority.
I just emailed the fiscal 19 Narragansett budget to everybody. So if you can look over and see what it's,
Okay.
what's all in there. It's been done about in this format, the last 3 years. So, again, I just thought that was an interesting email, from the school district email account. I don't know what their position is, who they are, what the, you know. But it was more for informational purposes, just something to be aware of, so, it's, you know. Like I said, you look at the line items of the budget, the school budget, and
Every
again,
October, the school budget, just for informational things, is they are required to end up sending into the state their budget, and you can view some of that on all, can't remember if it's all of it, Jeff, or just portions of it. It's been a while since I've.
Yeah. I know their E&D certification.
Right,
Has to be
Ian-
done by October 31st, I think.
Yeah, 31st.
That's online, and you can see that in the open. They have to send their financials, I think it's like in September. But I can't remember, I'd have to go in.
By the end
It's
of
on the
October, they
DLS
have to have it.
Website, it's, well, there's two different dates there. The E&D certification, I'm sure of. And that is in the open. It's right grouped with the tax recap sheets. Has municipal, it has school districts, stuff, blah, blah, blah. And following that, there's a letter from the district treasurer that's sent to the selectmen and this committee, or it has been for, that I know of for sure, since I've been on.
It's Mass General Audit.
But, yeah, well, there's a lot of Mass General laws that's sent to this committee with the, from the district treasurer with the certified budget as voted by the school committee. And it has to be, their budget's supposed to be certified by March 30th. That's their drop dead date when they have to vote, and then it gets sent over to the town. They can do it earlier, but the drop dead date is, and historically, that's what they've done, waited till.
Typically, that was always coming in late compared to other communities.
They could do it, like I said, they could do it earlier, but the law says they have till March 30th, and it's what they have done.
And you see a town such as Arlington, and they have the school budget in the middle of January, and they have a much bigger school district. You wonder why we can't end up getting that earlier in the year.
Now, what did I do with that? Another thing is, Mike sent me a question, about the bylaws, you know, like, where do you go to see, you know, bylaws and the ones that you follow, can you go by town meeting, or do you go by the general bylaws listed on the town's website main page? And there's a for instance, there's actually a couple instances, but a bylaw can pass at town meeting vote, and people will go, oh yeah, okay, that's bylaw. But it has to go to the Attorney General. And the Attorney General can look at it and say, no, that doesn't meet legal muster, and send it back, and it's not valid. The other option is if the Attorney General fails to act, I think it's 90 days, then it automatically becomes bylaw. But the question of, you know, can you go by the town meeting record or the general bylaws? And an example is back in March 14th, the annual town meeting 2013, Article 46, Section 4 of, I think it's Article 2. It created the position that we would have a town administrator. And, you know, blah, 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 and that was approved. Well, then in 14, where the fun started.
Yep.
It's Article 20. And Article 20 started out as the selectmen again, submitting a change to the advisories bylaws. And a section of Article 4, the advisory committee. Well, the advisory committee, you know, recommended against it because it was, again, the selectmen making a change that would affect the advisory committee without even talking to the advisory committee. So on town meeting floor, there was a substitute motion made with regards to the town administrator in conjunction with the Board of Selectmen will prepare the budget. So if you go and look at annual town meeting in 2013, you can see a bylaw that was passed and approved by the Attorney General. And then if you go and look in 14, or if you go look at the general bylaws, this section, blah, 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 it'll say the budget thing, totally different. And that was an issue that the advisory committee raised. We sent a communication to the town administrator, which is then Bob Markle, interim town administrator. We'd like to run this by town council, because we have two different bylaws that say it's basically the same thing, that one entity is gonna do this, and over here it says this entity is gonna do that. And I'm still looking for it. I'm gonna email Gordon and see if he's still got the email. But
That was a paper copy, it wasn't an email.
I thought he got it in his,
He got it in as an email.
private email.
Yeah, he
Then he
got it in his
handed out as a
Right.
paper copy. I'm
Right.
still trying to dig it up. But, so the question was posed, how can we address this? How do we deal with this conflicting bylaw? And the response was either, he didn't know the intent of town meeting. Was it the section 4 that was done in 13, did they mean to add a section 4A to add the budget stuff to it? Did they really mean to replace section 4? And the option to remedy this would be for the selectmen and the advisory committee to meet together and hammer out an agreement and fix it that way, or go bang it out on town meeting floor. So that was the answer from the town council.
Yep.
It was communicated to the selectmen, hey, and to this day, there's been zero answer, zero movement on it.
When that was first brought up to, when I was chair, I brought that up to the selectmen, and I got less than a stellar remark from the I think he was chairman of the selectmen, saying he didn't care.
Yeah.
One of the other things is, one step further is, and Jeff wasn't there at the annual, the association town finances. Somebody from the Attorney General's office came and was the keynote speaker, and the question was asked to them about bylaws, if they would end up looking at bylaws, if a new bylaw came, do they look at the existing bylaws to see if there's a conflict? And she said no, and she was the head lawyer. And it was brought to her attention that we do have that conflict, and she says if that was brought before us, we'd weigh in on that. And I guess it would it would fall upon either us or the selectmen to approach the Attorney General office in Worcester to bring that up. And I can't remember her name. I'd have to look at the overall, schedule for who that individual was. You could call Worcester and probably talk to her and present those two, send them to her, and she might give an answer.
Hopefully, that will be something that's noted in soon to be, well, said soon to be,
Codification.
the codification and the meeting and the presentation. Hopefully they, when they went through that, they found that, and whether they have recommended how the bylaws should say, or if they've just said, hey, you know, here's a headbanging issue, so to speak, and that needs to be addressed. I don't know how they're gonna address all these issues in the bylaws, Templeton, if they were gonna actually, this is what you have, and we looked at all the Mass General laws and what you have written here, and this is what it should be, or, you know, how that is gonna work, how that presentation is gonna work. It's supposed to be sometime this fall, but, we shall see. It's supposed to be done and in the building.
Question, Jeff.
Uh,
You've talked to town council more than us on the advisory. What has been, and I can't speak for the new town council, obviously. You can speak to your relationship with the past town council. What would be his position on a bylaw that's been existing for a long period of time and a new one's written, and it actually interferes with the first one? Does the older one take precedence, just like Mass General law does?
It was, the way it was changed, the way it was evolved or completed is it should have been fixed or addressed when the substitute motion was made on town meeting floor.
Yep.
But it's one of those, there's two ways to do it, and it really would have to go, you know, town meeting for the correction to be made. It's gotta be their choice. Town meeting is the legislative body. They're the ones that can approve laws, amend laws, and that's essentially what, you know, what the bylaws are. It's like the state legislature making state laws. And there was no clause put in there that, you know, this one would supersede this one, so I think if you look at there's several bylaws in there regarding the town warrant, town meeting, and when it's gotta be posted and this and that. There's like, I think there's like 3 of them in there. They've been, almost like it's been added and nobody looked at what was already there.
Originally, when we were on, the
So,
town warrant for the annual town meeting, along with the budget, was supposed to be presented on March 20th
right. And
to the advisory committee,
and town meeting moved it forward
to
to
April 10th.
And I'd have to look up to see who presented that, but it was to give, I think the intent was, so there would be more time for advisory, you know, and for the budget to be looked at prior to town meeting. What all this ended up happening, really,
They cut
is
down.
the selectmen and administrator take longer for the final version, so it's actually less time for it to be looked at, for town meeting.
There's been less and less time over the last.
Because when you push it closer to the deadline, closer to town meeting, then you have less time. Like this year, we had meetings, we want to start looking at the budget, you know, have the selectmen, you know, we had a joint meeting, presentation of this section. Could we have a meeting and do it, you know, and start talking about it? But then there was a school committee meeting, budget thing come up, there were snowstorms, I mean, it just kept, getting pushed and pushed. At least now this year, there's the selectmen's schedule has the dates and the days, posted when the joint meeting budget stuff is supposed to happen, and it's supposed to be in March. But then again, it means nothing because the bylaw, the selectmen can do like the school does. You'll get, the accepted budget or the warrant on April 10th. And if town meeting is May 15th, well, you got from the 10th to the 15th. Well, not the 15th, you got 2 days before to maybe recommendations published. So, like I said, the intent was to give it more time, and what really happened was
Get less.
we've had less time. If the Monty Tech should come in, their school budget should come in earlier
January, I
this
think.
year. Maybe this year, this meeting in October for the schools to start talking about the Narragansett budget. I go there, that's one thing I'm gonna raise my hand and say, hey, you all get your budget out, like in February.
Generally, when you end up having that type of meeting between the selectmen, the school, and your finance, that's when guidelines are set up by those bodies. If you look at, in your handbook, that's when you set up the guidelines. Guidelines being, okay, this year we're going to level fund everything. Or this year we're going to end up having a 1% increase or 2.5%, whatever, that's a general guideline as to how you start off the budget process.
But as far as the budget being certified by the school committee and, getting it to the town earlier, hopefully some kind of agreement or at least tentative can be done, at that time, just say, hey. Along with all the other things that may come up, being discussed, because that's, when they're gonna start putting pen to paper for the 20 budget, which will include, the staffing and everything of the elementary school, if, I guess, all goes to plan and the building's, complete, inventory certified, sound audited by MSBA and all other parties involved, and it's all set to be a school. And that, this next budget will be for the fall of 19, but, so that electronic copy of the school budget should be able to see the, professional development sections and stuff in there, should answer
Okay.
those questions, Tony, so. I think if anybody's interested, I think I have the 18 electronically. I have a paper copy, but I may have it electronically.
If you have it electronically, sure.
I
Sure.
can send it.
Yeah,
I know I have
I
a few
think we may have electronic.
past years. I'll have to look. Like I said, I know I have a paper copy, but, so. So there are goals for this year, and then things that we may wanna put like on the website, on our page, for people to read. There's a selectmen's meeting on the 11th, and we have this room scheduled for the 12th. If there's no financial transfers, and I don't think since the meeting is Wednesday, 6:30, I don't think their agenda will be up till Monday. But if there's no financial transfers or anything.
The meeting has already been posted for next Thursday. Next Wednesday,
Wednesday.
excuse me.
Yeah.
You wanna meet Thursday, or? The thing is, if there's no financial
If there's no
or anything-
transfers, then
Well, we would butt heads with, community preservation,
Oh, right.
because they meet the second Thursday. I mean, if they don't
It
have
says
a
cemetery
quorum,
and parks too at 6:30.
but at the senior center, I think.
Yeah,
Oh,
this,
it doesn't say where, it just
they were in the
says
senior
it's here.
center.
Yeah. Yeah, if you open up, if you
Yeah,
click on it,
Council on
open up the
Aging.
agenda, it's generally there. But if CPC doesn't have a quorum, I mean, then we can come in, but if they have a quorum, then
Yeah.
we're at their mercy.
If there's no transfers, I don't know. I don't think we really need one. And then maybe by the time we have our next meeting, which would probably be,
So it would, our next regular scheduled meeting would be the following Thursday,
19th.
19th.
Okay.
Which we won't be here for, either one of us,
Which I may not be here.
which is why we had decided to do the 12th, because we knew that week of the 19th. we
I
would
mean,
be
I can
gone.
support the 12th.
Do we just have, we have one pressing thing that we have to do. We'll have to have a regular meeting to take action to pay the invoice for
Yeah.
Vadar.
Okay, so we can do that then.
Then we can do some minutes.
And you should probably have a bill already received from the Association of Town Finances.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Did you, it should be in the
Yeah, I
mail.
can support it. I
No?
just,
I couldn't get a word on the Gardner News. There's not another invoice in there, so I'm taking,
yeah, I mean,
I'm
if we were to
assuming
pick between the two,
that,
and if you guys are definitely not gonna be here, then I
because
can.
the lady was gonna check on the
Definitely
Gardner News and she didn't
Like I
email
have
me
a-
or call me back.
I may be coming back.
There's
from
nothing in the
Oklahoma that
mailbox,
day,
so
and
I'm
then I'm flying
assuming
to Charleston the next
We
day.
cross paths.
You were chairman of the select board, right? You made the,
I don't
you made
know.
the agenda for them,
Nice
right?
gift.
I
Okay.
can neither confirm nor deny that.
All right, good. Glad we got
Oh, okay. You had input to the agenda.
Uh,
I'd love to go there.
It's ge-
I might have.
it's generally done by the chairman. Is that better?
Just looking at,
It used to be.
so if we did the 12th, our next meeting.
The reason I ask that is that
Which one's
the
that?
chairman of the select board is sitting in Old Orchard Beach this week. But there's an agenda up for next week.
Electronic.
So?
Electronic.
Let's,
I doubt it.
The administrative assistant to the town administrator's on vacation. Unless Eric did it.
I just had a question.
all right. So,
It is the chairman's responsibility according to the selectmen's
Handbook.
policies.
so
Policies.
even if we, just have a few invoices to approve, then we probably should have it. Mike should maybe be here. Who knows, maybe by then we'll have the 7th member.
Yeah, like I said, it's the one bill that I know we gotta pay is the Vadar one.
Yep.
Okay.
So,
So if we do that next week, then we would pick up the regular first and third week, starting
August, yeah.
in August?
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that actually would work out well.
Like I said, the only thing about the 12th is, where the CPC,
Understood, yeah.
would be backing up against them. So,
Yeah.
and it's, we've kinda talked about, our goals, what we'd like to do, but I mean, that's just something, that everybody could like, like make a notation of or something, and I can put that on an agenda of a meeting.
Okay.
So the 12th, you'd wanna have like a regular working meeting and take care of a couple of things we
Yep.
gotta
Yep.
take care of. Okay. Hopefully it works out. Thursday, 6:30 here, or I'll try to make arrangements if we can go to the other one, just in case. Like I said, if CPC doesn't have a quorum, then we're all set, no problem.
Okay.
I'll look at their agenda to see what they have doing. And it'd just be like, probably minutes, that invoice, maybe a couple other things. Maybe we'll have an expenditure report by then, I'm not sure.
I doubt it.
Hey, I'm optimistic. It's a new year. We're in a new fiscal year. Brand new day. So,
Well, the
And,
books
we could
close
even-
on the 15th. We should have an end of the year for 18 budget actual.
by August, we should,
Maybe that should be a request, Mr. Chairman?
well, oh,
Since
the
we
other thing would
normally
be,
get it, then we don't need it out of
entertain a vote or
cycle.
discuss, requesting, access to our our tab on the
Right.
town's website.
Absolutely.
Per what Mike had said, if it's no, then what's the policy on that? And I think we've kind of kicked around this, the town employment, the positions open and the management situation, whether, who's looking at what and what's the reason, and, maybe we, be involved as far as, another set of eyes, suggestions, how have you been approaching trying to hire these positions? Have you done, maybe we asked the question, it's, no, we didn't think of that. Is it on MM, where were you advertising, how long? This, that, and the other thing. I mean, I think if it's been, if they're gonna portray, we'll work together type of thing, and the advisory committee's gonna be on the budget and be on this, then, I mean, you're having a hard time, it seems, filling these positions, you have people a long time leaving, maybe there's an issue they're not thinking about. And again, that could be, a request or a suggestion or an offer, to the selectmen. Contact them each, email them in rather than going through, or go both, but let the selectmen individual know that we're, it concerns us and we're interested in helping out if you're so inclined to include us and see what, like I said, that would be like a litmus test for this fiscal year, what's,
I think the truth is that we're a resource. We are all voters, we are all residents, and we're interested because we're here as the bottom line. And if they're not using us at the bare bones of our resource-ness, then they're depriving themselves of a valuable asset that's sitting right here.
they're depriving the town of a
Yes.
resource.
Yeah.
Not just the selectmen,
Yes.
'cause, that's affecting a lot of stuff.
Because we represent the voters.
That's right.
That's affecting a lot of different things, a lot of people. And, if you wanna attract business, you can't have 10 positions open, at least from my view, do I wanna come in and plant money down and do business in this area of town? Well, they can't seem to keep, what's the reason? It's just kind of like a
Especially,
red flag. You
paid
should be working
jobs.
hard to fill those things, and what are you doing? Like I said, I guess I have too much time on my hands or something, but I look at the MMA website, I try to keep track of where they're, if they're looking, advertising, where they're looking, advertising. And they had the DPW on MMA, but it's gone now. The other positions, the truck driver, laborer, that was in the Gardner News for a couple of days, but I mean, are they going other places? How much effort? I don't know.
Wouldn't it's kind of short-sighted just to put it on the town website as a major area that they would end up listing jobs.
Well, I would hope they would put it on other job websites, not just town.
Yeah, it should be broad. You know,
Tons of
there's
search
somebody looking
engines.
for a, you know, a job, may not think of like looking at the town website, but there are other places they would, you know, for municipal employment, you would, you know, just go to. It's like, you know, professional people, they have places they go and look regularly. And that's where, if you're looking for a professional type, like an administrator, or something, I would think that's where you would be the first places you would go, not put it on your town website, or just your town website.
Has the town ever used a recruiting firm?
I think they used, well, they used the Collins Institute, and they went somewhere else looking for a town administrator. For the other positions, I don't think so.
I think that was also Collins, another branch of it or whatever. Oh, no, they used another source. They were going to go to the Collins, and they used another agency.
They, for the TA, yeah, like I said, they went to a couple of places, and they got some people, but, so, they said hopefully maybe if we reach out, we can gain, and if they don't wanna give it, then what's the explanation for not being able to? We post our policies and the things that you use, you know, the transfer policies and things. And if nothing else, I mean, so people can see how business is done and it's up to date. And, you know, we have people that can do this, we could do it at a meeting. I mean, we vote on something, we put this on there, I mean, it could get done like real time.
Yep.
And not having to email it and transfer it and wait, and somebody on vacation, it shouldn't be that way. And on top of that, the taxpayers, they appropriate money to have a website and maintain it. And part of that fee for that website is the access and the moving parts of it, if you will. And one of the moving parts is, we can go in on our page, the town clerk can do it, the assessors can do it, why not us? It just, one
Right.
less thing that, that assistant to the town administrator has to do. I mean, you've got enough on your plate as it is. So we can start, discussing things. Does anybody have, I mean, anything else to discuss or kick
No.
around, or something to look up, or if you do, just shoot an email, I can put it on an agenda, or find an answer, for things. And, sometime, I don't know, maybe something, you know, another workshop meeting sometime down the road, it's just, after we have that meeting with the school concerning their budget and the money tech stuff, before we get into the movement, maybe we can have another one and discuss, like a plan of attack or something, how we do things, or if we wanna break up and somebody cover this and work on that. Things like that. So if we have nothing else, motion to adjourn the workshop, and we'll meet on the 12th, 6:30 here.
Sounds good.
The room's already reserved, I'll make the agenda, and I'll look at CPC, hopefully it'll work out. And it'll be a short meeting. All right,
Thank you.
so all in favor of adjourning the
Yes.
workshop? Yes, okay. Anyone wanna stay? All right, we'll see you on the 12th.